My sister stole my future and my parents helped her, now they want me to fix it all. The smell of slightly overcooked roast beef and my mom's aggressively floral air freshener hung thick in the air. It was Dad's 65th birthday dinner, supposedly a low-key affair, just the four of us. Me, Mom, Dad, and my older sister, Ashley. Low-key usually meant high tension simmering just below the surface, waiting for the slightest vibration to boil over. Tonight felt different, though. Thicker. Like the air itself was bracing for impact. Ashley was being saccharine sweet, complimenting Mom's gravy, which was, frankly, lumpy, and laughing way too loud at Dad's predictable jokes. Mom kept darting nervous glances between Ashley and me, her smile plastered on so tight I thought her face might crack. Dad was trying to project jovial patriarch but his eyes kept flicking towards the unopened mail pile on the sideboard, the one I distinctly saw him shove a thick, official-looking envelope into when I arrived. I'd almost managed to ignore the weird vibes, chalking it up to the usual family dynamic: Ashley performs, Mom enables, Dad avoids, and I try to breathe. I excused myself to use the bathroom upstairs, needing a momentary escape. On my way back, habit drew me past my old bedroom. The door was ajar. I peeked in, mostly bare now, a guest room officially, but still holding ghosts of my teenage self. And sitting right there on the dusty nightstand, next to a wilting vase of carnations probably left over from Mother's Day, was the envelope. The thick one Dad had tried to hide. It wasn't sealed properly. Curiosity, or maybe some deep-seated instinct honed by years of navigating their bullshit, made me pick it up. It was addressed to Mom and Dad from a major bank, marked urgent, final notice. My stomach plummeted. I shouldn't have. I know I shouldn't have. But my fingers were already easing the flap open, pulling out the folded documents inside. It wasn't just a final notice. It was a notice of default on a home equity line of credit. For $150,000. Taken out 6 months ago. My parents didn't need a $150,000 loan. They owned their house outright, Dad had a decent pension kicking in, Mom worked part-time. This made 0 sense. Then I saw the attached disbursement statement. The entire amount, every last cent, had been transferred directly into an account under the name Ashley Carmichael Holdings LLC. Ashley's perpetually failing lifestyle brand consultancy that changed names more often than she changed designer knockoff handbags. The blood drained from my face, then rushed back with a roar that drowned out the muffled sounds of laughter from downstairs. $150,000. Against their house. My childhood home. The home they'd always sworn would be their safety net, their legacy, the place we'd always gather. For Ashley's latest doomed venture. And judging by the final notice part, she'd obviously blown through it already and wasn't making the payments. The silence from them about this, the weird tiptoeing tonight. It all clicked into place with sickening clarity. They weren't just hiding Ashley's latest financial fuck-up, they were hiding the fact that they might lose their house because of it. I walked back downstairs, the papers clutched in my hand like a damning verdict. The laughter died abruptly as I entered the dining room. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on me, then darted to the envelope. Ashley's faux sweet smile vanished, replaced by a deer-in-headlights stare. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face crumpled, aging 10 years in 10 seconds. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I dropped the papers onto the table, right next to his half-eaten slice of chocolate cake. The thud seemed to echo in the sudden, suffocating silence. "Maybe you can wish for a way to pay this back? Since Ashley clearly can't. To understand how we got here, you need to understand the landscape of my family. It's always been tilted, the ground sloping irrevocably towards Ashley. She's 3 years older, brighter, louder, quicker to charm, quicker to cry, quicker to demand. I was the quiet one, the observer, the one who learned early on that rocking the boat only got me wet. Ashley could throw a vase against the wall in a teenage tantrum, and Mom would soothe her, worrying about how upset she must have been to do such a thing. If I dared to raise my voice in frustration, I was disrespectful, ungrateful, needed to control my temper. Ashley got the lead in the school play, I was stage crew. Ashley went to the expensive out-of-state college her heart desired, paid for with a second mortgage I only found out about years later. I went to the local state university and worked 2 jobs to minimize loans, because suddenly money was tight. Ashley had a series of dramatic, whirlwind romances with guys who inevitably broke her heart, or emptied her wallet. I had quiet, steady relationships that Mom called boring and Dad barely acknowledged. Ashley launched business after business, jewelry making, event planning, life coaching, the current lifestyle brand, each funded by loans from Mom and Dad that were never repaid, each collapsing spectacularly within a year or two amidst tears and excuses about bad luck or treacherous partners. I built a stable career in project management, saved diligently, bought a modest condo, lived within my means. I wasn't perfect. I made mistakes, had my own struggles. But my mistakes were mine to fix. Ashley's mistakes? They became family projects. Specifically, my projects. From smoothing over landlord disputes when she inevitably couldn't pay rent on her trendy apartments, to helping her restructure her business finances, figuring out how deep the hole was this time, to lending her money for emergencies that always seemed to coincide with designer shoe sales. The lending stopped years ago, after she forgot to repay a significant sum I'd given her for supposed car repairs, only for me to see her post pictures from a lavish spa weekend literally the next day. When I'd confronted her, she'd cried, accused me of being jealous and petty, and Mom had actually told me I needed to be more understanding of the stress Ashley was under. The dynamic was insidious. It wasn't just about money. It was about attention, accountability, reality itself. Ashley lived in a curated reality where she was the perpetually unlucky protagonist, always on the verge of greatness, thwarted by external forces. Mom and Dad were her willing audience and financiers. And I was. The stagehand? The reluctant banker? The killjoy who kept pointing out the plot holes? There were good times, of course. Holidays that felt almost normal, moments of genuine connection. But they were always fragile, always overshadowed by the knowledge that the next Ashley-centric crisis was just around the corner, and the family's resources, emotional and financial, would be marshaled to manage it, usually at my expense in some way. I learned to keep my successes quiet, my struggles private. Sharing good news often led to Ashley finding a way to one-up me or passive-aggressively diminish it. Sharing bad news invariably circled back to how much worse Ashley had it, or how I should be grateful my problems weren't as dramatic as hers. I tried talking to my parents about it, many times over the years. In my teens, it was tearful accusations of unfairness, met with defensiveness and lectures about sibling jealousy. In my 20s, it was calmer, more structured attempts to point out the pattern of enabling, the damage it was doing to Ashley herself, the strain it put on our relationships. These were met with denial. We treat you both the same, minimization, oh, Lexi, you're exaggerating, Ashley just needs a little more support sometimes, or outright guilt tripping, family helps each other. Why are you being so selfish? Don't you love your sister? Dad would usually retreat, mumbling something about not wanting to take sides, leaving Mom to be the chief defender of the status quo. The worst part was the gaslighting. Times I knew money had been given to Ashley, things I knew had happened, would be flatly denied or twisted. We didn't give her that much. Lexi, where do you get these ideas? That wasn't a bailout, it was an investment in her future. You must have misunderstood. It made me doubt my own perception, my own memory. Was I the crazy one? Was I the bitter, jealous sister they painted me as? I moved about 3 hours away for a job opportunity, partly to get some distance, some perspective. It helped. I built a life for myself, found friends who felt like family. People who celebrated my wins without caveat and supported me through losses without judgment. I set boundaries with my family, limiting visits, keeping conversations on superficial topics, politely deflecting requests for help or money for Ashley. It caused friction, periods of stony silence from Mom, accusations of pulling away. But it was necessary for my sanity. The past year, however, things had escalated. Ashley's lifestyle brand was supposedly really taking off this time. She was posting constantly about #girlbosslife, #manifesting abundance, showing off expensive lunches and retreats I knew she couldn't possibly afford. Simultaneously, Mom and Dad started dropping hints about tightening their belts. Dad delayed replacing his ancient car. Mom canceled their annual trip to Florida. When I asked if everything was okay, I got vague answers about saving more for retirement, the rising cost of living. I had a nagging feeling Ashley was involved, but I didn't push. I learned pushing only led to lies and defensiveness. I figured she was hitting them up for smaller amounts again, draining their disposable income. I had mentally prepared myself for that. I had not prepared myself for them leveraging their entire goddamn house, the bedrock of their security, for her delusional pipe dream. And keeping it a secret from me while it all went to hell. Back in the dining room, the silence stretched, thick with unspoken accusations and fear. Ashley finally broke it, her voice trembling, but not with remorse. With indignation. Where did you get that? Were you snooping? Snooping? I repeated, my voice shaking now, fueled by a white-hot rage I hadn't felt in years. It was on the nightstand in the guest room. Dad practically tripped trying to hide it when I walked in. You knew I'd see it eventually, didn't you? Or were you hoping the foreclosure notice would be the first clue? Mom gasped, tears instantly welling. Lexi, Please. Not tonight. It's your father's birthday. Oh, I know it's his birthday, Mom, I shot back, turning to face her. Is this his present? Finding out his retirement is completely screwed because you decided to gamble his house on Ashley's fantasy business? $150,000. Are you kidding me? Dad finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly. It wasn't like that, Lexi. It was an investment. Ashley presented us with a solid business plan. A solid business plan? I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Dad, be honest. When has Ashley ever had a solid business plan? When has any of her ventures lasted more than 18 months? When has she ever paid back a dime she borrowed? I looked directly at Ashley, who was now glaring at me, her victim mask replaced by pure fury. How much is left, Ash? Or is it all gone? Judging by this final notice, I'm guessing it's all gone, and you haven't made a single payment. Ashley stood up abruptly, knocking her chair slightly. This is none of your business. It's between me and Mom and Dad. You have no right to interfere. No right? My voice rose, cracking with years of suppressed frustration. No right? When it's their house on the line. The house I grew up in too? The house you both swore up and down you'd never borrow against again after the last time you bailed her out? I have every right. Especially since I just know, that eventually, when the bank comes calling for real, you'll all turn to me to fix it. Just like always. That's not fair, Lexi, Mom cried, reaching across the table as if to placate me. We would never expect that of you. Bullshit, Mom, I snapped, pulling back from her touch. You absolutely would. You'd tell me it's my duty as family. You'd tell me I'm the only one who can help. You'd lay the guilt on so thick I'd suffocate. You've done it my whole life. Why would this time be any different? How much have you already sunk into this pit before you took out the loan? How much of your savings? Dad's pension? Dad looked down at his plate, unable to meet my eyes. Mom started sobbing quietly. Ashley, however, puffed up with self-righteous anger. You're just jealous, she spat. You've always been jealous of me. You resent that Mom and Dad believe in me. You want me to fail. The accusation, so old, so predictable, didn't even sting this time. It just made me tired. Deeply, existentially tired. Jealous? I asked, my voice dropping again, deadly calm. Jealous of what, Ashley? Your mountain of debt? Your inability to hold down a real job? The fact that you manipulate our parents into ruining their own lives to fund your delusions? No, I'm not jealous. I'm horrified. And I'm angry. And frankly, I'm done. What do you mean, you're done? Mom asked, her voice laced with panic. I took a deep breath, the smell of roast beef and betrayal filling my lungs. This was it. The point of no return I'd been orbiting for years. I mean, I'm done being the family's financial backstop. I'm done being the fixer. I'm done cleaning up Ashley's messes. I'm done listening to the excuses and the lies. This $150,000 disaster? This is your problem. Yours, Mom. Yours, Dad. And yours, Ashley. The three of you made this bed together. Figure out how you're going to lie in it. Or lose it. Lexi, you don't mean that, Dad said, finally looking up, his eyes pleading. We're family. Family doesn't secretly gamble the house away on one child's pipe dreams while lying to the other, I said, my voice breaking slightly despite my resolve. Family doesn't enable self-destruction. Family doesn't set one kid up to be the perpetual savior while the other gets a free pass to wreck everything. I looked at Ashley's furious face, Mom's tear-streaked one, Dad's defeated expression. I love you. God help me, I do, but I can't be part of this cycle anymore. It's killing me. And it's not even helping her, I gestured towards Ashley, who scoffed. It's just making the inevitable crash bigger and harder. I picked up my purse from the floor where I dropped it earlier. My hands were shaking. I won't be offering solutions. I won't be co-signing anything. I won't be lending a cent. I won't be mediating with the bank. This is entirely on the three of you. So you're just going to walk away? Ashley demanded, her voice shrill. Abandon your own family when we need you? You don't need me, Ashley, I said sadly. You need a reality check. And Mom, Dad. You need to stop shielding her from it. Maybe losing the house will finally be the wake-up call everyone here desperately needs. The words tasted like acid, but I meant them. You're cruel, Lexi, Mom whispered, fresh tears flowing. How can you say that? How could you do this? I countered, the anger flaring again. How could you risk everything for her, again, knowing her track record? How could you lie to me about it for months? No one had an answer. The silence was heavy, broken only by Mom's sniffling. I walked towards the front door, the weight of their stunned, betrayed eyes following me. Part of me, the old program part, wanted to turn back, to soften the blow, to offer some kind of compromise. But the bigger part, the part that had been slowly suffocating for 30 years, knew this was the only way. This had to be the line. My hand was on the doorknob when Dad spoke again, his voice hoarse. Don't do this, Lexi. Please. We can figure something out. Together. I paused, my back still to them. The time for together was 6 months ago, Dad. Before you signed those papers without talking to me. Before you gambled your security on a fantasy. The only thing I need to figure out now is how to protect myself from the fallout. I opened the door and stepped out into the cool night air. It felt shockingly fresh, clean, like I could finally breathe after being underwater for far too long. I got into my car, the engine roaring to life in the quiet suburban street. I didn't look back at the house, at the warm glow in the dining room window where my family sat amidst the wreckage of Dad's birthday dinner and their own making. I just drove. The 3-hour drive home was a blur of tears, rage, and a strange, terrifying sense of lightness. The rage was easy to understand, the betrayal, the lies, the sheer recklessness of it all. The tears were for the loss of the family I wished I had, the loss of the security I thought my parents possessed, the loss of the illusion that things could ever actually be normal. The lightness was harder to pin down. It felt like freedom, but tinged with guilt and fear. Had I done the right thing? Had I been too harsh? Was I abandoning them? My phone started ringing about 30 minutes into the drive. Mom. I ignored it. It rang again almost immediately. Ignored. Then a text, Lexi, please answer. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? $150,000 default notice wasn't a typo. I didn't reply. Then Dad texted, Pumpkin, I know you're angry. You have every right. But please don't shut us out. Love, Dad. Pumpkin. He hadn't called me that in years. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. Still, a pang of guilt hit me. Ignored. Then, predictably, came Ashley, you bitch. You ruined everything. I hope you're happy. That one, strangely, solidified my resolve. Ruined what, exactly? Her free ride? Their collective denial? If exposing the truth was ruining things, then things were already broken beyond repair. I turned my phone off. The silence in the car was suddenly peaceful. The following weeks were intense. After a couple of days of silence, me keeping my phone off, them probably regrouping, the onslaught began. Mom called constantly, leaving tearful voicemails about how worried she was, how they were barely sleeping, how could I be so cold, how family sticks together no matter what. She swung between pleading and accusing, sometimes in the same message. We miss you, honey, please come home so we can sort this out. How could you abandon your father like this, on his birthday? He's devastated. Ashley is a wreck, this is all your fault for blowing up. Dad's approach was quieter, more guilt-driven. Emails with subject lines like thinking of you that contained long, rambling paragraphs about the good old days, interspersed with comments about how stressed Mom was, how worried he was about her, subtly implying I was the cause of her distress. He mentioned the Helic only obliquely, talking about financial pressures and the hope that things might still turn around with Ashley's business, as if ignoring the default notice would make it disappear. Ashley alternated between radio silence and furious, misspelled text tirades. Accusations that I'd always been jealous, that I was trying to sabotage her, that I was selfish and materialistic. One memorable text claimed I had no idea what real pressure is and that I should be grateful for my easy, boring little life. Easy? I wanted to scream. I worked 50+ hours a week, managed budgets 10 times the size of her fantasy loan, paid my own mortgage, saved for my own retirement. Nothing about my life was handed to me on a silver platter funded by parental delusion. They tried involving other relatives. My mom's sister, Aunt Carol, called me, clearly fed a carefully curated version of events. Lexi, honey, your mother is beside herself. I know there's been some financial disagreement. But surely you can all sit down and work it out? Your parents aren't young anymore, they need their family around them. I politely but firmly told Aunt Carol that she didn't have the full story, that this involved a significant betrayal of trust and potential financial ruin, and that while I loved my parents, I could no longer be involved in enabling my sister's destructive behavior. I told her about the $150,000 Helic. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Aunt Carol, to her credit, just said, "Oh. Oh dear. I see. That's more serious than I realized." She hasn't called back about it since, though her subsequent calls have been noticeably more sympathetic towards me. The hardest part was weathering the emotional manipulation. Every call ignored, every guilt-laden text unanswered, felt like a small betrayal in itself, cutting against the grain of 30 years of conditioning. Part of me desperately wanted to call Mom back, to reassure her, to fall back into the old role of mediator and fixer. Because that role, however damaging, was familiar. This new territory, prioritizing my own well-being, holding firm boundaries, felt alien and uncomfortable. There were nights I barely slept, replaying the confrontation, wondering if I could have handled it differently, less explosively. Wondering if I was truly as cold and selfish as they were painting me. But then I'd remember the look on Dad's face when he admitted it was an investment. The fury in Ashley's eyes, devoid of any remorse. Mom's instant tears, not for the situation, but for the fact that the secret was out. I'd remember the years of smaller betrayals, the constant drain, the feeling of being taken for granted. And I'd remember the sheer, staggering amount, $150,000. Against their home. Behind my back. That wasn't a small mistake. That was a catastrophic failure of judgment and a fundamental breach of trust. I started seeing a therapist. It was something I'd considered before but always put off, too busy, too expensive, maybe things weren't that bad. But the birthday dinner blow-up was the catalyst I needed. Talking it all through with a neutral third party was incredibly validating. My therapist helped me see the long-standing patterns of codependency and enabling, Ashley's narcissistic traits, and how I'd been conditioned to accept the role of scapegoat and fixer. She helped me understand that setting boundaries wasn't cruel, it was necessary for survival and, potentially, the only way for the others to ever face reality. It didn't make ignoring the calls easier, but it helped me understand why I needed to. About a month after the ticking time bomb birthday dinner, I got a registered letter. It was from my parents. My heart pounded as I signed for it, terrified it was some kind of legal notice, or worse. It wasn't. It was a multi-page, handwritten letter, mostly in Mom's looping script, with a short section from Dad at the end. It was a masterpiece of non-apology. Full of phrases like "we're sorry if you felt hurt." Mistakes were made on all sides. We were only trying to help Ashley get on her feet. Perhaps we weren't fully transparent, but our intentions were good. It talked about the importance of forgiveness, the sanctity of family, how they loved both their daughters equally, a laughable statement under the circumstances. It detailed how stressed they were, how the bank was being unreasonable, how Ashley was trying her best to find a solution but the market was tough. Then came the kicker. Buried in the middle of page 3, "We know you're good with finances, Lexi, and you've always been so resourceful. We were wondering if you might have any ideas, or perhaps could help us talk to the bank? Maybe co-sign a refinancing loan to consolidate things? Just until Ashley's business turns the corner. We know it's a lot to ask, but we don't know where else to turn." I read it twice, just to make sure I hadn't hallucinated it. After everything, the secrecy, the default, the blow-up, my explicit statement that I was done, they were still asking me to step in and fix it. To put my own financial future on the line by co-signing a loan born from their disastrous decision and Ashley's irresponsibility. The audacity was breathtaking. That letter, strangely, was the final nail in the coffin of my guilt. It proved they hadn't heard a word I'd said. They still saw me not as a person, not as their daughter who they had betrayed, but as a resource. A potential solution to their problem. I didn't reply to the letter. I didn't need to. My silence was the answer. A few weeks later, I heard through the grapevine, a cousin who tries to stay neutral, that Mom and Dad had managed to scrape together enough from Dad's pension fund, incurring massive penalties, no doubt, to cover the immediate default and negotiate some kind of forbearance agreement with the bank. They hadn't lost the house, not yet anyway. But they were now shackled to this massive debt, their retirement plans completely derailed. My cousin mentioned Mom was working more hours, Dad looked perpetually exhausted, and Ashley was. Well, Ashley. Apparently, she was now blaming the stress of the family drama, i.e., me discovering the truth, for her inability to make her business profitable. She'd reportedly told relatives I had sabotaged her by causing unnecessary conflict right when she was on the verge of a breakthrough. The delusion was stronger than ever. Life for me has changed profoundly. It's quieter, for one. No more panicked calls from Mom about Ashley's latest crisis. No more walking on eggshells during family visits. No more dreading the inevitable request for money or help. There's a calmness in my life that wasn't there before, a sense of space. But there's also a persistent ache, the phantom limb of the family I used to have, flawed as it was. Seeing other people casually mention Sunday dinners or holiday plans with their families triggers a pang of sadness, of otherness. My circle of friends has become my true family, and I'm incredibly grateful for them, but there's a primal connection to your roots that, when severed so drastically, leaves a scar. I still love my parents. That's the complicated part. I hate what they did, how they enabled Ashley, how they betrayed my trust. But underneath the anger and disappointment, there's still the memory of the dad who taught me to ride bike, the mom who made my favorite soup when I was sick. I grieve for the relationship we could have had, the one Ashley's needs and their choices made impossible. I have zero contact with Ashley. Blocking her number and social media was one of the most freeing things I've ever done. I occasionally hear updates about her through the family grapevine, still chasing the influencer dream, still blaming everyone else for her problems, apparently now trying to launch some crypto scheme. I feel a strange mix of pity and relief, pity for the black hole of need inside her, and relief that it's no longer my problem to manage. My contact with my parents is minimal and carefully managed. After months of silence following their letter, Mom sent a tentative birthday card for my birthday. Just a card, signed love, Mom, and Dad. No pleas, no guilt trips. I sent a polite, thank you text. A few weeks later, Dad emailed asking a neutral question about my work. I replied factually, cordially. It's like learning to communicate in a new language, one stripped of expectation and obligation. We talk maybe once a month now, short calls, strictly surface level topics, the weather, my job, their garden. We don't talk about Ashley. We don't talk about the Helic. We don't talk about the future or the past. It's fragile, awkward, and deeply unsatisfying in many ways. But it's honest, in its own strange way. This is what's left. This is the boundary. Maybe, someday, more healing can happen, but I know it can only happen if they truly acknowledge the harm caused and change their behavior. I'm not holding my breath. Standing up for myself, drawing that line in the sand, was the hardest thing I've ever done. It felt like setting fire to my own history. But watching the flames, I realized I wasn't just burning bridges, I was clearing smoke. Smoke that had choked me for years, obscuring my own path, my own worth. The air is clearer now, even if the landscape looks darker. I regret the pain caused, the explosion itself, maybe there was a less damaging way? But I don't regret taking action. I don't regret choosing myself. I had to. Continuing down the old path would have meant losing myself entirely, drowning in their dysfunction. This way, at least, I have a chance to build something real, something stable, on my own terms. It's lonely sometimes, this path. But it's mine. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm actually moving forward, not just bracing for the next family-induced impact. I've learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about respect, trust, and mutual support. And sometimes, the bravest act of love is to step away from a dynamic that's destroying everyone involved, even if it means walking away from people you're supposed to stick by no matter what. So, Reddit, I guess I just needed to get this all out. It's been swirling inside me for months. Did I do the right thing? Was walking away, refusing to bail them out, the only answer, or was it just cold? What would you have done if you were me?